Hello and welcome. Today, we are retaking a deep dive into a conflict that has reshaped our world, the war in Ukraine. More than 2 years on, the initial shock has given way to a grim reality of strategic stalemate. But what does that actually mean? And why are both Russia and Ukraine seemingly trapped in this devastating forever war? Let's unpack the complex layers of this conflict, from the front lines to the global economy. Initially, many expected a swift conflict. Russia launched a multi-pronged assault, aiming for a rapid victory through maneuver warfare. Think fast-moving columns of tanks and troops, overwhelming defenses. But that's not what happened. The heroic and unexpectedly fierce Ukrainian resistance, particularly around Kyiv, completely upended those plans. The conflict quickly morphed from a war of movement into a brutal war of attrition. Today, the front line, stretching over 1,000 kilometers, moves glacially, sometimes only a few meters at a time. Both sides are locked in a deadly contest, not just to gain territory, but to exhaust the other's resources: soldiers, ammunition, vehicles, and national will. It's a 21st century version of trench warfare, defined by artillery duels, drone strikes, and a staggering human cost, where the primary goal is to grind the enemy down until they can no longer fight. This strategic deadlock is the central, brutal feature of the war today. But the battle isn't just being fought with tanks and artillery. There's a parallel war being waged on the economic front, and its shockwaves are felt across the globe. Remember the initial spike in gas prices and the headlines about a global food crisis? That's the economic war front in action. Ukraine and Russia are both agricultural powerhouses, often called the breadbaskets of the world. The disruption to their grain exports created massive instability in global food markets, hitting developing nations in Africa and the Middle East particularly hard. While agreements have tried to keep grain flowing, the situation remains precarious. Similarly, Russia has long used its vast energy reserves as a political tool. By weaponizing its control over natural gas and oil supplies to Europe, Moscow attempted to fracture Western unity and create economic pain that would reduce public support for Ukraine. While Europe has largely weaned itself off Russian gas, this economic warfare continues to shape political decisions, influencing everything from inflation rates to international diplomacy. The economic pressure is a constant underlying factor that both sides are trying to leverage to their advantage, turning global markets into another battlefield. This brings us to one of the most critical factors sustaining Ukraine's fight: Western aid. The steady stream of military, financial, and humanitarian support from the United States and its NATO allies has been an absolute lifeline. Sophisticated weaponry, from HIMARS rocket systems to advanced air defenses, has allowed Ukraine to not only defend itself but also to level the playing field against a numerically superior Russian army. Without this aid, the military balance would look drastically different. However, this lifeline is not guaranteed forever. We are now seeing the emergence of what analysts call aid fatigue. In several donor countries, political debates are intensifying. Questions are being raised about the immense cost of the support, the long-term commitment, and domestic priorities. Political shifts, like upcoming elections in the US and Europe, introduce a significant element of uncertainty. A reduction or a halt in aid could drastically alter the military dynamics on the ground, potentially forcing Ukraine into a weaker negotiating position and emboldening Russia. The political will in Washington, Berlin, and other capitals is now as crucial to the war's outcome as the courage of soldiers on the front lines. To truly understand Russia's strategic motivations, we need to look at a map, specifically at the Black Sea. This body of water is not just a scenic coastline. It's a vital artery for trade and a critical arena for military power projection. For centuries, Russia has sought warm water ports that aren't frozen in winter, and the Black Sea, particularly the Crimean Peninsula, provides exactly that. Control of Crimea gives the Russian Navy a dominant position, allowing it to project power into the Mediterranean and the Middle East. This is linked to a core military concept known as strategic depth. Strategic depth is essentially a buffer zone. It's the physical space a country controls to protect its industrial, political, and military heartland from a direct attack. Russia's actions in southern and eastern Ukraine can be seen as a brutal and illegal attempt to create this buffer zone, securing its Black Sea fleet in Crimea and creating a land bridge to protect what it considers a vital national security asset. For Ukraine, regaining control over its coastline is a matter of sovereignty and economic survival, making the Black Sea a central and fiercely contested point of the entire conflict. So, where does this all lead? What is the long-term geopolitical forecast for this devastating war? It's impossible to know for sure, but analysts generally point to 3 potential scenarios. The first, and perhaps most probable in the short term, is a frozen conflict. This would look something like the situation in Korea, with an armistice line, but no formal peace treaty. Fighting would largely cease, but the region would remain heavily militarized and on a permanent hair trigger. with the underlying territorial disputes unresolved. The second possibility is a negotiated settlement. This would require immense diplomatic effort and painful compromises from both sides, likely involving third-party mediators. The key sticking point's territory security guarantees for Ukraine, and reparations make this an incredibly difficult path, especially while fighting is still raging. The third scenario is a continuation of the current war of attrition, a prolonged grinding conflict that could last for many more years. Both sides might believe that time is on their side. Ukraine hoping for more advanced Western weapons and a collapse of the Russian economy, and Russia betting that Western support will eventually crumble. Each of these outcomes carries profound implications for the future of European security. The continent's stability for generations to come is being forged right now in the fire of this conflict. Thank you so much for joining me for this analysis. Understanding the complexities of this war is crucial for all of us. If you found this video insightful, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into global affairs. Stay curious and stay informed.